Hey, do you practice breathwork? Maybe you don't need to. Okay. I know. I'm a breathwork teacher, and practicing breathwork is very important and all these things, but a lot of people have this idea that a breathwork practice means that you have to sit down every day for 20 or 30 minutes and take a breathing technique and practice it and do it and do it. And this is what is called a formal practice. A formal practice means that you have a formal moment where you sit down and you do the thing. Now, I find that for me and for many of my students, this is actually not the best way to use breath. This is, of course, super useful if you enjoy having a moment like that to yourself in the day. It is super useful if you have a very clear idea on which factors of breath you want to work on, and especially if the techniques and the methods you want to practice require you to sit down and really focus on it. Right? So there's definitely something to it. It's amazing. But I'm just here to say that you may not need a breathing practice to get benefits from breathwork. Because a formal practice, like I said, is carving out this moment in the day where you sit down or you lay down, you do the practice, you follow an online guided session or whatever it is, and then you go about your day. Or you can do it in the evening or whatever. Like these are formal practice, right? You sit down, you have a clear idea of what I'm going to do. This is great. But I believe that the goal of formal practice is to achieve a high level of informal practice. Now, what is informal practice? Informal practice means how do you apply and use your breath from moment to moment. Now, for me personally, the last year, I had a baby about a year ago. So the last year, I had a lot of sleep deprivation. This kid just wouldn't sleep. I can make more videos about that later, but it's been a whole journey. Waking up 10 to 15 times per night, feeling very groggy throughout the day, noticing that I'm more and more likely to feel stressed and less resilient, just not feeling in really great shape most of the time. And especially with kids and with a business and with all the things going on in life, I found actually that it wasn't for me in that moment to have a formal practice every day, to carve out time from that. Now, you might say like, oh, you should set up your life in a way where you can have this time to yourself every single day, and that would be great. And I think there's a lot to it. I've done this often, of course, but this time I noticed this is not how the breath gets to be there for me. Actually, I get to reinvent the way that I relate to breathing, where it doesn't have to be me sitting down and meditating and doing the whole thing for 30 or 40 minutes. And right before my son was born, that's actually what I was doing. I would get up an hour before the rest of the family woke up. I'd sit down in front of my red light and I'd do a whole host of breathing techniques. I would do negative exhales and breath holds and superventilation and hypoventilation, all this stuff. And I loved it. And of course, over the years, I've done this a lot and I've learned a lot from it. And now I notice that when life really happened, when I couldn't really get the right amounts of sleep, for example, and the business suddenly went exponential and I had to just be there on it. Stepping away from that and doing a breathing practice wasn't the way that I was trying to practice. Also, I was laying awake a lot at night, and a lot of the time that I was awake, I would just practice all kinds of different techniques. Or actually, I wouldn't really practice techniques. I would tune in with my body and see what is needed in that moment. And this is really what informal practice is about. It is understanding how life influences your state, how your state influences your breathing, and then how you can influence your breathing to influence your state so that you are more capable of dealing with life around you. That is where mastery of breathing practice really comes in, where it's not having to sit down and breathe for 30 minutes per day or for whatever amount of time you think you need to sit there formally. It is actually then about understanding how you can navigate life better. So to me, mastery, breathtaking mastery, is not about mastering breath in itself as a practice. It is about mastering life through breath. And this is actually what my book is going to be about, interestingly. My next book. But anyway, so it is understanding in which moment can you use which type of breathing, which variable in how to change your breath in order to change your state and to be more capable of being in life, dealing with life, moving with the currents of life. So for example, there would be moments where my sleep-deprived brain just couldn't kind of take it anymore, and I'd find myself getting frustrated and wanting to kind of like be like, fuck, like this, and find myself, oh, okay, my system is activating. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little mini breathing technique to shift out of that. Or I would lay in bed, finally get to sleep, and suddenly baby would wake up, deal with the baby, go back, oh man, now I'm all activated. My nervous system is active, can't really relax anymore. Now what do? Then I have a breathing technique, right? Or for example, I would fast in the morning, and then after some fasting, I would have a meal, and then after the meal, I'd get this after dinner dip, and I'm like, oh man, the next hour, I'm going to basically be tired and groggy. Then I would use a breathing technique, like for example, focus reset breathing, to help my body go parasympathetic and to digest faster, right? So there's all these different ways, all these different moments. So the question is not, what do you need to do on your yoga mat, on your meditation cushion, in a formal moment with a specific technique, like what do you, as a to-do almost, right? The question is, what do you want from life? Which moments are you not in the right state to get from life what you want, right? Sometimes maybe you're tired when you want to be active, or you're active when you want to be tired and go to sleep, right? Or you want to be able to focus, but you're groggy. And there's all of these different ways in which our state can sometimes not match the life that we want to live. In those moments, that's when it's useful to have breath. That's when you want to have an arsenal of breathing techniques, an understanding of your body, a capability of changing your breath to change your state and then change the way that you stand in life, right? So what is one way to get it? One way to get that is a formal practice, of course, right? That's the funny thing. Again, contradicting myself, but we need to understand why we are doing this. This formal practice is to get better at life. And you don't need a formal practice if it works right away. Like, for example, I had a guy come to one of my lectures. This was just like a 100-person lecture, lots of people in the room. And I taught this one breath break that you may have seen on this YouTube channel before. I won't go into it now, but just a one super simple one breath breathing hack that puts the brakes on your nervous system and works super well. And this guy a year later told me that he had really strong panic attacks before he came to my lecture, a few times per week. And then he took this breathing technique, and whenever he would feel his system kind of activate, he would practice the one breath break, and he hadn't had a panic attack since. Does this guy now need to sit on a yoga mat and do 30 minutes of breathing practice every day? Hell no. He solved the problem. He did the thing. That's what what the whole thing is about, right? So he found a way to take breath work, and instantly understand what that did for him, instantly understood, oh, I feel a little bit better now. And every single time he wants to feel that way, use that specific breathing technique. So you don't need a formal practice to develop that. A formal practice can help. It can be profound. It can be amazing. If you feel drawn to it, definitely dive into it, definitely. But I meet quite a few people who say like, yeah, practicing breathwork isn't really something for me. And I don't know, wait, why not? Do you never feel stressed? Yeah, I feel stressed sometimes. And if you feel stressed, would you like to feel less stressed? Yeah, I'd love to feel less stressed. Okay, and if you could do a breathing technique that makes you go from stressed to not so stressed, would you do that? Oh yeah, of course, amazing. But practicing breathwork is not for me. So you see, so people think that breathwork is this thing that just like meditation or yoga or a workout, you need to do in this one moment, in this one way with a specific technique and a goal. You need to sit and your incense and your music and all this stuff. No, it's not necessary, or at least it's not necessarily necessary. There is another way, which is functional breathing. And these things I call strategic interventions. There's a whole host of cool breathing techniques that I teach that you can use, you can find online everywhere, that will just show you how to get to sleep better and how to feel more rested or how to activate yourself when you're down, right? So maybe if you thought breathwork wasn't for you, maybe it's just because you thought you needed a formal practice, but maybe you don't. Maybe you just need an informal practice. Now, I'd love to hear if you have an informal practice, if you have breathing techniques that you use throughout the day, and please drop them in the comments so we can all learn from each other. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Give this video a like, follow me, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.